It's the 80s Experience on FM 88.5 KSBR with J.J. Buchanan. He's the lead singer of one of the earliest and most prominent ska rock bands of the 1980s, Mr. Dave Wakeling. Dave, what's happening, my friend?
At your service. I'm very glad to talk to you because it just got me off driving duty, heading from Los Angeles toward Reno, which is a gorgeous... The blossom's just starting on the almond trees now, so it makes the 5 freeway a bit more exciting. Sadly, I know it like the back of my hand now. I know every gas station, know the names of the people in every gas station. Hey, Dave, back again. So I'm grateful you can make this into as long as you like. We've still got a few hours to go.
Okay, all right, man. Well, that's good. So Dave, I know you grew up in Birmingham, England, and which musicians or artists inspired you musically when you were growing up?
Well, my first local group, my first local heroes were Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin. The half of Led Zeppelin, the good half, was from round by us. And so black country rock was one of my very first things to love. But about the same time, I think when I was about 12 or 13, I also heard the first reggae, these Tighten Up volumes 1, 2, 3, and 4, ska and blue beat records. And they really turned my head as well because they got such a solid groove and sort of dirty lyrics, which as a pubescent I appreciated greatly. And so they were so I was kind of torn, if you will. It was a dilemma. I'd got my ska records and my skinhead birds with white tights and white lipstick, or I'd got Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, and hippie chicks with patchouli and underarm hair. You know, what a choice for a 12 and 13-year-old to make, you know.
How did you meet up with the other guys that would soon become the Beat and, English Beat? How did that all come together?
Oh, my gosh. Well, the potted history of it, me and Andy went to school together, the other guitarist. He moved to the Isle of Wight to make a song in the 1970-somethings, 76 maybe, 77 to 78. We put an ad, people said they liked them. We put an ad in a newspaper that said bass player required shake some action from the Flaming Groovies song, thinking if anybody knew that they were all right. And only one person answered, and that was David Steele, the genius of the bass guitar. We started to get a bit more serious about it, and it sounded like we were onto something, this mixture of the Velvet Underground meets Toots and the Maytals with Brian Ferry singing on top. And so we moved back to Birmingham. David got a job in a mental hospital, asked a nurse if he knew any drummers, and Everett showed up the next Tuesday. And that was it, really. It was the nucleus of the band. We started doing shows, and Ranking Roger kept jumping on stage and grabbing the microphone and toasting and going down very well. So after a while, he said, can I be in the group? And we said, yes, can you push that bass amplifier? And he could. So he was in, and then we went to make a single of Tears of a Clown as a Christmas party single to start our career off. And we asked Saxa, who was our favourite saxophone player in our local bar in Handsworth, the Crompton Arms, if he'd play on the single, and he declared that he would, and he would never leave the band. And this was destined to be a hit.
Then, Dave, you guys got together, and is it true you were still working in construction when you came up with the monster hit, Mirror in the Bathroom?
Indeed, yeah. I was trying to get out of going to work. You know, it'd been a bit of a late night. There'd been a bit too much Guinness, perhaps an extra half pint of Guinness too much, and I'd forgotten to put all my clothes up to dry on the rack. So when I woke up in the morning, they were in a big pile, all wet to the knee, covered in sand. You know, a lot of people thought Mirror in the Bathroom was about cocaine, and there was no money for cocaine when that song was written.
Another great hit that was released off the group's debut album was a great tune that I really enjoyed, was Too Nice to Talk to You. Was that inspired by a club there in Birmingham?
Yes, the Club Barbarella's in Birmingham, which was pretty famous for punk fans and new wave fans, I suppose. It was the premier nightclub for that sort of thing in Birmingham. After the groups had finished, they would have a DJ playing records, and at 2:20, which was that's it, the record would go, all the lights would go on and thank you very much, good night, get out. Sometimes you were off in your own little dream world at that point, and what the particular evening I'd been thinking of inviting this attractive young woman to dance and hadn't quite picked the right moment yet, and all of a sudden the record got scratched off and the lights went on and my dream was shattered and I saw her walking off with the crowd, and you can't really say, oh, I meant to ask you to dance for the last 2 hours. So a missed opportunity, and so the song started with, it's too late now, it's 20 past 2.
So when you were a teenager, Dave, was it correct that you wrote the tune Save It for Later when you were still a teenager?
I did. I started it as a teen song. It was really a dirty schoolboy joke. Save it, comma, for later. And the whole song really revolves around that. People thinking that you were a grown-up, that you're looking like a grown-up now, you know, between 18 and 20, but really you're still kind of clueless about what's expected of you in the grown-up world. Mm-hmm. And that's sometimes different from what you think might be expected. So it was about just trying to grasp with the rest of the world thinking you were grown-up and you trying to catch on to that idea. Well, I mean, I suppose like most kids, we always think we're grown up by the time we're 13, but we notice that it's different. It's difficult sometimes to fit in with the adult world.
Right.
And so it was about those sorts of graspings, you know. So in that sense, it wasn't really about anything. It was about trying to search for meaning in a world that was a bit confusing at the time.
And then the next song, Dave, I Confess, I read that it was inspired by a bus ride you were on, and then I also kind of heard that it might be like an autobiographical piece. How did you come up with the song I Confess?
Well, there's always some little bits that are autobiographical, but never really straight stories of your life. You get the chance as an artist to embroider. You can make up a fictional story that's far more dramatic and exciting, but you can use elements of your own life in it. It came from a cartoon magazine, Love Affair magazine I'd seen. It was the age-old story, I suppose, of the bride's sister being a bridesmaid, but having a bit of a thing for the husband. And in this particular case, they were caught in the back of the church just after the ceremony.
Oh, boy.
You know, caught still in the bridesmaid's gown, caught by the bride and sister.
Yikes!
So that was a hell of a cartoon story. So my getting in trouble wasn't quite as dramatic or as flowery as that. But I think most people have been in those sorts of situations, and so I just extrapolated that idea, mixed it with some of my own ideas about it, and came up with this heady brew. And really, I suppose if there was a point to the song at all, it's in the second chorus, I confess I don't really care. It seemed to me, as a young chap, that most lovers' arguments were about who cared the most. Well, I love you more than you love me anyway. That sort of syndrome. Both of them arguing that they loved the other one more and the other one loved them less. But both of them sounding thoroughly hateful the way they were saying it. And I included myself in that. So it seemed to me then that sometimes the hardest thing to admit was that you'd given up caring. You didn't mind anymore. And so that was the nub of it, really. I confess, if it's all the same to you, I'll stay indifferent.
And then in 1983, Dave, the band released the album What Is Beat. The song Can't Get Used to Losing You was a part of that album. What's the background on that particular song?
Well, a couple of things, really. One of my dad's favourite songs, he'd taken me to task a little bit. Tears of a Cloud, of course, the Smokey Robinson song had been a big hit for us. And then we brought out our own records and albums, and some of them were hits, and one of them wasn't such a big hit. And my dad said, well, you know where you're going wrong, don't you, Dave? I'm like, no, but thanks anyway, do tell. And he said, well, I don't blame you. He says, I blame the Beatles. You know, they were the first ones who thought they could do the lot, weren't they? We're going to write the songs, we're going to do the sleeves, suddenly we can do everything. He said, you know, you didn't see Frank Sinatra sitting up all night writing songs, did you, Dave? No. He was out doing models. He said, and when he came back in the morning, they'd got a song for him. The thing written by, you know, proper songwriters, real songwriters. I'm like, oh, okay, well, thanks for the advice there, then, Dad. Lovely. And he said, you know what you could sing the piss out of, eh, Dad? Can't Get Loose to Using You. He got it the wrong way around. So anyway, I did think about it, and I liked the song very much, and thought that it suited a reggae beat rather well. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Sounded kind of reggae-ish. Not long before, a group called Wham had sent a cassette tape of demos trying to see if they could get any interest to be on our Go Feet record label. An unnamed bass player in the band received that cassette and came up with the great idea of we should do a version of Can't Get Used to Losing You, which I heard after they'd become international superstars. The boys in Wham were not overly thrilled of it. But anyway, suffice to say, George, Michael, and my dad and David Steele convinced me to do a version of it, and I think the greatest honour I've ever received was that it won some award in a poll in England for best reggae cover version of all time.
And then I know in the year of 1984, you got together with Ranking Roger and you guys formed the band General Public and released the great album All the Rage. What was that experience like? I'm sure it was totally different than being with the English Beat and the Beat. And what was that experience like?
It was an exciting experience. I mean, there was some good and some bad. We were part of a five-piece security council with a veto vote, which it had been in the Beat, and it could get really boring waiting to get something that all five people agreed on. And a couple of people thought that they were Russia and China, so they just veto all the time, really. It just got boring. All of a sudden, me and Roger were in charge, which was great. We got to call all the shots, and that was great until it screwed up, because that meant it was definitely going to be a five. So there was good and bad to it, and the good far outweighed the bad. I really enjoyed the experience.
Very cool. And then the opening track, I always liked the track off of All That Rage. The opening track, Hot You're Cool. How did you come up with that song, Dave?
You know, it's one of those things, like, I always thought calling a group something to beat was obvious, and I was amazed that nobody had done it. Well, we had to change it to the English people by the time we got to America, but in England we were just known as the Beat. And it just struck me as, I couldn't believe nobody had done a song called So Hot You're Cool, So Cool You're Hot, you know, and just rubbed those two songs against each other. So to start with, really, it was just more of a celebration that nobody had thought of that before, and everything else then fitted around that. I tried to write as sexy and as oblique a lyric as I could in the second verse. I tried to just come up with images that could mean any number of things to different people, depending on what your tastes might be. But legs against my chest, stomach tight and wet, the very best. Yes, you guessed it. So hot you're cool, so cool you're hot. Now, I've heard about 30 descriptions of what that actually means, and they're all absolutely correct.
That's too funny. And the song, Dave, Tenderness. Tell me the story behind that, because I've read that it was inspired by your love for American trucks and with all the gear in the trucks. What's the real story behind Tenderness?
That was the beat of it, yes. I really wanted that. You know, when a truck's really flying through the night and it's got that sound like a train going, like as it clips against the lines on the freeway. That's a So I had this notion of searching for the tenderness was traveling around America. I'd been a big Cannonball fan growing up as a kid. And the idea of American trucking was very romantic to me. I even used to like to travel on the truck instead of the posher tour buses with the other musicians. I liked to drive overnight with the truck and talk on the radio and drink coffee and put one knee up and adopt heroic postures, you know. Wipe imaginary sweat from my brow, you know. I really enjoyed it, and this beat was in my head, and so it was a bit like searching across America looking for something, looking for that sense of compassion, tenderness. You meet very often in complete and utter strangers in America. You know, I know that the way the media would have it, they have us at each other's throats and more or less every faction hating each other more than we hate people from abroad. But on a one-to-one basis, you ever find yourself in trouble on the side of a freeway or stuck at a truck stop or something like that, ask an American. And they'll always be there to offer their help and assistance.
Right.
So it was searching for that thing that I think everybody who lives here thinks is one of the most valuable parts of America, that sense of all being in this together. And it's something that's being strained at the moment by the politics and the invested money that would rather have us at each other's throats rather than working like a team, you know.
The tune Too Much of Nothing off the album Hand to Mouth, what was the inspiration behind Too Much of Nothing?
I suppose it was to do with consumerism. I suppose it was to do with that part of the 80s that was the me first society, and that collecting things didn't necessarily make you more secure. It just kept you further away from other people, which made you feel more insecure. And there's a couple of bits stolen out the Bible there. I hope they don't want publishing. It's hard to speak with a mouthful of stones, So it seemed that there was a lot about the 80s that was starting to become decadent, at least financially. People were greedy and saying and doing more or less whatever it would take just to make another buck in what seemed like a fast market at the time.
Then in 1988, Dave, you had the chance to produce the soundtrack and record the title track to the John Hughes film, She's Having a Baby. How did that all come together?
Well, we had used songs in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and I'd become friends with John Hughes, and he asked me about this film, and we actually sent lyrics to each other by regular mail from Birmingham to Chicago. It would take about 10 days. It's like a postal chess game,
Mm-hmm.
Which was kind of cute. We sent each other lyrics and letters, and this notion developed. And I wrote it really, first time off, I wrote it kind of like a Rolling Stones rock song. Oh, Jane, she's having a baby. And everybody thought it was great. And then as the film started to be filmed and got more developed, they started realizing that they weren't selling this directly to John Hughes' resident teenage and early 20s audience, but the story had really leapt on a few years, and that their demographic now 10 years older than they thought it was going to be. Now, in my head, boy, I tell you, that Rolling Stones version of it, I kind of still thought it was great, but the version that they brought out was appropriate for the film because the actors were set in that sort of late 20s, early 30s, trying to be proper grown-ups syndrome.
And Dave, I know through the 1990s you had some great success too, up into today. So Dave, what are you working on today as far as music? What are you working on?
Well, it's fantastic. It's like a whole renaissance going on. We've just re-signed the Beat catalogue to Shout Factory in Santa Monica, a really great label that's also reissue a load of great classic movies and very nice people. So we've done the same sort of thing with Demon Records in England. And so we're busy looking at box sets and track listings and live songs nobody's ever heard before and radio sessions and 12-inch dance mixes that never came out in America, and trying to put what will be a 5-CD box set of, you'll just feel beaten black and blue by the time you're done. You won't need any more beating. Fully beaten, the complete beat. And so that's a great project. We're doing the same with General Public following that. And I've got 20 new tunes that, I'd like to start bringing them out kind of like EPs or something like that. I don't know that bringing out a whole album of stuff is the way to go for me at the moment. I'm not sure. But we'll see what happens with these Beat and General Public releases. And there's also a chance. I tried with the Beat but didn't really get far enough. But it may be that with General Public, me and Roger might get back together to do a couple of songs to add to the album. So there's a couple of General Public Today tunes added as bonus tracks or something. I couldn't quite get that to happen with the English Beat. I'd have to get them to come out the house, which seems a bit difficult for some of them.
I hear you.
Mind you, with the weather in England, who'd want to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you. A little drizzly at times, a little drizzly.
Oh, you know what I mean? It's like one step out that front door, you've got arthritis for 2 weeks. Nothing you can do, sitting with your feet in a hot mustard bath.
Oh, that's too funny, man. That's so great.
I can't blame them.
So,
England, a great place to come from.
True. Exactly. I love it. So Dave, what's the best website for everybody to get more information from you?
Well, I've got a couple of Facebooks just in my name, Dave Wakeling. There's 2 of them, one with a colour photograph of me playing guitar and one a black and white photograph, but they're both me and I answer both of them pretty regular most days. There's a few couple of English Beat sites and an English Beat Street Team Facebook site.
And Saturday, April 13th, English Beat's going to be up on stage at the Coach House in San Juan Capistrano. For more information, go to thecoachhouse.com. Dave Wakeling of English Beat, thank you so much for being a part of the experience tonight. I really appreciate it.
I was grateful to be a part of the 80s. I got to tell you, the 80s, as far as I remember, were 2 or 3 years of the best years of my life.
I love it.